Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Bress, and I'm here to talk to you today about chapters 1 and 2 of Frankenstein. So here's the summary of the first two chapters of the book. So as we start, we are switching from Captain Waldman to Victor. Victor is now the one telling the story. In these two chapters, we learn about the stranger, Victor Frankenstein, his childhood, and his upbringing. And here is Victor as a child. Victor's father's name is Alphonse, and his mother's name is Caroline. And they meet because Victor's father, Alphonse, has a friend named Beaufort who unfortunately dies in poverty, meaning he dies very poor. And so his daughter is left destitute, and she needs help. And Victor's father, Alphonse, steps in and kind of rescues Caroline. He becomes her protector, and eventually he marries her. And they are very much in love, according to Victor. He also says that he is very loved. So when Victor comes along, he says that he was their plaything and their idol, and something better, their child. This creature bestowed on them by heaven. And I think it's interesting there that Victor calls himself a creature bestowed upon them by heaven. So basically, he's talking about how he is this creature who is very much loved by the people who bring him into the world and create him, and that they take very good care of him and take responsibility for him. Victor Frankenstein then describes someone else that comes into the family, and this is Elizabeth Lavenza. Now, Elizabeth comes in the family a little bit different way than Victor. Her mother, and also Victor's mother, is in Italy traveling when she discovers Elizabeth. Elizabeth has been orphaned. Her dad was an Italian nobleman, and she was taken in by an Italian family. And her mother was visiting the poor in Italy and sees Elizabeth there and is struck by this child. And the family, being poor, they barely can make ends meet, want better for Elizabeth too. So they agree that Caroline, Frankenstein's mother, Victor Frankenstein's mother, should take in Elizabeth. And so she adopts Elizabeth Lavenza. And as Victor says, Elizabeth becomes more than a sister to him, the beautiful and adored companion of his life. And it's interesting the way Victor's mom introduces Elizabeth to him. She does it in a very clever way. She says, "I have a pretty present for my Victor, and tomorrow he shall have it." And then she introduces Elizabeth. So Victor sees Elizabeth as like his present. She was given to him. That's how he sees her. He says she is mine to protect, love, and cherish, which sounds very similar to wedding vows when you think of it. Love, honor, cherish, love, yeah. So he says that Elizabeth is his to protect, love, and cherish. And that she's a little bit more than an adopted sister. So he's very close to her. He says that everybody loves Elizabeth. He is also close to his childhood friend, who is named Clerval, Henry Clerval. And they have a great childhood growing up, and Victor starts becoming interested in studying different things, and he stumbles across the works of some alchemists and natural philosophers. Now, as you remember from our Frankenstein history assignment, natural philosophers were interested in trying to find the answers to the questions of the natural world. So they were trying to solve the mysteries of the world, basically, the wonders of the universe. And alchemists, specifically, like Agrippa, one of the people that Victor Frankenstein studies, alchemists were trying to find a way to turn ordinary metal into gold, which they didn't succeed with. And Victor is very excited by all this, and he shares it with his father, the things that he's been reading, but his father says, "That's trash. That's trash. You've wasted your time." And he doesn't really explain, he doesn't really take the time to explain to Victor that the reason that he says that he's wasted his time is because these things are outdated. These are the old masters. These are the old alchemists. Things have come a long way since then. And Victor kind of loses his way for a little while, but then when he's 15, he sees something amazing. He's in the middle of a storm, and he actually sees lightning strike a tree. He sees the lightning come down and strike the tree and set it on fire, as you can see in these pictures here. So when he sees that happen, he is just struck by the power of nature. And a more modern natural philosopher who was with the Frankenstein family at the time, he was staying with them, takes the time to actually explain to Victor. He explains to him about electricity. And Victor is really struck by this, and he turns his focus towards learning more about that. Learning things like mathematics and chemistry and things, but learning more about modern thought. And electricity figures really in a big way in what he is studying, what he's learning about. We'll talk later more about galvanism, which was the idea at the time of electricity powering things and how excited people were by that. So, in these two chapters, we learned about the women in Victor's life, his mother and his more than sister Elizabeth. And as you can see, the women of the time are often portrayed as kind of passive. They're beautiful, but they're more about being cherished and protected than being in themselves these strong characters. They're more passive. So we learn about how really people of the time viewed women. And remember, this is a woman that is writing the novel. This is written by Mary Shelley, but she does recognize that this is how men viewed women at the time. And we also see quite a bit of foreshadowing of what is to come when we read these chapters. Victor talks about the fatal impulse that led to his ruin when he talks about natural philosophy. He uses words like fate. He uses words like fatal. He uses words like omen. And he foreshadows things. And this has a few results. First of all, the foreshadowing helps to add to the suspense. We know something bad is coming. But it also distracts from the suspense a little bit, and I'll explain that. That's because he already tells us that this led to his ruin and that he is doomed. He basically says he has no hope. Things have gone so badly for him. So we know it's not going to end well. And the language is also interesting when he foreshadows because of the words that he uses, like fate, fatal, doom, omen. It kind of makes it sound like these things were predestined to happen. Like this was fate. And it sort of shifts the responsibility off of Victor a little bit. So as you read on in the book, what you're going to want to look at is Victor really taking any responsibility for his part in what is going on? How much responsibility is Victor taking? So that's something that you want to look at as we continue reading Frankenstein. And this has been a summary of chapters 1 and 2. Thank you.